NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhijalan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, and one I've been looking forward to for a while. It's taken some time, but we got it done. Who the fuck are you, and what do you do?
My name's Sean Chuma, and yeah, I'm a base jumper. I just base jump all the time. I do a lot of other stuff too, but that's kind of how people know me.
Yeah, that's certainly what I know about you. You've jumped off of a few things.
I have, yeah. And I teach people how to base jump, and I take people on tandem base jumps, and I just travel around base jumping for fun as well.
Dude, man, I'll tell you what, the teaching people to even skydive can be a little nerve-wracking. I can't imagine what it's got to be like teaching people to base jump.
Yeah, it is pretty tough, I would say. It's I always equate it to sort of like extreme babysitting, and it's yeah, it's intense because I never know who I'm gonna get, and I never know I mean, I check up on them, but I never know how they're going to perform in an intense situation. So, yeah, sometimes it is a bit scary. It's a big job, a lot
Yeah,
harder than
man.
people think.
We're definitely going to dig into that because I have questions. I definitely have questions. But I want to, as I normally do, kind of take you back to the beginnings because obviously you didn't just wake up one day and start base jumping. Something brought you here. So how did it all begin for you?
Well, when I was a little bit when I was 8 years old, I think that's when I wanted to skydive because I just saw it on TV and I begged to do that. And of course, I had to wait until I was about 16. And I got lucky with that because after I started, they changed it to 18, but I got to keep going. So, yeah, I got to start in high school and I ended up having 150 jumps before I finished high school. And then I kind of took a break and didn't jump much while I was in college in Nebraska. And then I got right back into it when I moved back to San Diego. So
So
yeah,
wait,
I loved it.
you went from San Diego to Nebraska?
No, I went from, so I moved around a lot. I started skydiving in Idaho, in Caldwell, Idaho, because I was living in Boise, went to high school in Boise. And then I started in Caldwell, Idaho. Then I moved to Nebraska for college. Then during college, I moved to San Diego. And
Okay.
that's where I did most of my skydives. It was in San Diego, but
So
started in Idaho.
150 skydives in high school in Idaho. You, I
That's
mean,
right.
that's that had to pull some serious weight in fucking high school.
You would think it would, but I was super shy and I was
Oh,
so busy with all the other stuff I did. Yeah, I definitely did not utilize it. I think some people knew that I skydived, but I think most people didn't. I just kind of did it. And then I was also busy with gymnastics. I was a ski instructor and yeah, I was also a pole vaulter. That was actually the main thing I was doing, was pole
Jesus
vaulting.
Christ, man. How were you
Yeah, I was a
not
busy kid.
how were you not strutting around high school like fucking Bodhisattva?
I know.
I would have been working the living shit out of that.
I was so shy.
So, but pole vaulting and gymnastics, that actually kind of paints a bit of a picture from a young age because obviously now, especially with the base jumping, a lot of the gymnastics stuff, I'm sure, plays a huge part in that. So, what was the gymnastics about?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely helped in base jumping. I started that when I was 10 years old, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah, I started that when I was 10, but I was well into like on my way to getting into gymnastics at a pretty young age. I just wanted to do flips. I was like would jump on my friends' trampolines. We didn't have one. All I had was a jogging trampoline. I taught myself how to do front flips on that, and I was
Oh,
landing on my back at first, and
oh,
I was doing like backflips out of swings and stuff like that. And then finally, my parents got me into gymnastics because it was going to be gymnastics or diving, and I went from there. And it was a really good place too. It was there's an Olympic gymnast named Bart Connor. I don't know if you remember that guy.
I
He
absolutely
was
remember that name.
yeah. So his gym was the one I went to. So we had like Olympic level coaches at our gym. Um, Tons of good equipment. It was a top-notch facility in Oklahoma. That's where I was living at the time when I started that. And yeah, it was just it was what I was made to do, flips. And yeah, that kind of led to all the other things. I mean, it helps with pole vaulting as well. It helps with everything, just because you learn so much body awareness.
I was gonna say
And
it
you have
boils
to
down
learn
to
as a
body
kid.
awareness, right?
Say what?
I said I was gonna say it boils down to body awareness, yeah?
It totally does, yeah, because the average person isn't used to even being upside down. They kind of get disoriented. It's just normal. But if you learn, those skills as a kid, it changes you for life.
Sure.
Yeah.
Now, what did you end up going to college for?
Psychology.
Really?
Yeah. So
See,
I got
there you
a,
go. That paints another picture because that again leads towards the shit that you're doing now.
yeah, yeah, it definitely helps to kind of get into people's heads and help them, mainly calm themselves down and work through
Sure.
the intense parts of jumping.
So you had done a lot of the skydiving at 150 jumps in high school. Obviously, you'd gotten past a few hurdles in dealing with fear in skydiving. So, as you're going to get your psychology major in college, were you actively jumping or?
Yeah, I was jumping a little bit in college. I didn't have much time or money, so I had slowed down on the skydiving, and I hadn't started base jumping yet. Um, I did go back to Nebraska and jump off of some things there.
Hmm.
Um, that they like, I guess I can say it now, but there was a the big state. I don't know if you know, there's a huge stadium there. It was University of Nebraska, the Memorial Stadium. They were building these skyboxes, and they had this big crane for the
Ah,
skyboxes, and I got to jump sort of like the crane was coming up on the side of the stadium, and I climbed up it in the middle of the night. One of my friends was at the bottom, and then I jumped off, and it was like 220 feet or so, and
oof.
then got to land on the track that I trained at. So that was pretty cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
So now back to the jumping in high school. What did your folks think of this? I mean, you said you wanted to do it from a young age. So by the time you got around to doing it, was it just finally a fuck it, let him do it so he stops talking about it kind of thing?
Yeah, it was pretty much that. And they were excited because they knew I was totally into that. It's all I ever talked about. So they understood. My mom was pretty nervous about it, me getting into skydiving and base jumping. But after years, she finally kind of decided that she knew I was like very responsible with it and smart,
Sure.
and
Well,
she
this
was
the
trusting
skydiving,
me.
obviously, a lot of us can associate with the parents being a bit resistant at first and then coming around to it. But the base jumping's got to be a lot fucking harder to get mom and dad to cope with.
Yeah, because there's so much unknown about it that everybody assumes the worst.
Sure.
And even, if someone doesn't know anything about it, then they just kind of go based on all the bad things that they hear, and they end up thinking that, um, like I don't know, they always come up with these crazy statistics that aren't really true, that one in however many base jumpers, you know,
Sure.
die in a base jump, and it's just kind of not real information. And yeah, but so I don't know. Basically, if someone gets into base jumping, you got to almost gain trust. It just takes time to gain trust
Sure. Well,
by
I think
people.
I don't know, and you'll have a much better perspective on this from the base jumping side, but I would imagine that base jumping has kind of taken the place for what skydiving was 20 years ago, when the only thing you ever saw of skydiving was when it was a fucking fatality. That's the only thing people ever, that or the X Games was the only damn thing you ever saw. And now with base jumping, either it's insane wingsuit proximity stuff or it's somebody died.
Right. Yeah, I mean it was worse maybe 10 years and more ago in base jumping. They would like all people would hear on the media is base jumping accidents. I feel like there's a lot more positive stuff about it now,
Sure.
which has changed it quite a bit. But yeah, you're right.
I mean, it's you're always going to be fighting that battle, right? Because people want the drama. They don't necessarily just want the feel good story. So they want to know that something's like super intense and hardcore, which aims people towards the sport, but then they get there and decide, oh, this isn't quite what I expected.
Yeah. Yeah, the media loves that negative side of stuff just because it gets people watching, but
Yeah.
it's definitely not the full story, huh? It's like
No,
there's so much beauty in the sport, and there's also, I mean, there is that real side, that kind of just horrific side of it. But it takes knowing and respecting that horrific side to kind of stay on that positive side of things. So
well, sure. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and again, being in that side of the sport, I'm not a base jumper, so I don't have quite that angle, but I've been in skydiving an awfully long time. So you see shit happen, and those are the moments where you have to assess everything in your life as well, because you're like, oh, okay, this I'm one fucked up mistake away from this. I need to, is this something I want to continue to do? How can I be safer? You know, every time something goes wrong with somebody else, you have to reevaluate, right?
right.
So, what was your first base jump?
My first base jump was in Twin Falls. It was I took a class, so I waited to actually take a class until I jumped. and it was this guy named Baxter Gillespie. He worked for a company called Morpheus. I don't know if he base jumps anymore, but he did a really good class. And yeah, it took a while. I had to cancel my first class because I hurt myself in a swooping accident in San Diego. So I was in the hospital, had to get reconstructive surgery on my face because I broke my face and my
Oh,
shoulder and foot. Yeah, it was bad. I actually crashed into the packing tent at Skydive San Diego, just swooped right into it, going
oh,
really fast and knocked myself out. I had to get helicoptered out. So that's why I missed my first class and I had to recover from that. So that took, many months. And yeah, and then eventually I got to come up to Twin Falls and do that. And my first base jump was yeah, off the bridge and I was pretty damn nervous to be honest. Like I was trying to count down and I think I remember kind of balking on the count. At first it was like three, two, one, and then I was glued to the bridge. I just couldn't get myself to jump. So I had to I had to do it again and then I talked myself into it. But then once I did it, it kind of yeah, it became a lot easier and I don't know, it's like a slow journey to being able to trust yourself and having the confidence to perform so much stuff in a short amount of time,
sure.
And I mean, I'm constantly learning things about it, but
Well, that's the key, right? Is you never stop learning.
yeah, and you definitely don't want to stop learning or think you know everything about it.
For sure. Well, now, so after an accident like that, granted, a swooping accident is night and day different from the act of going for a base jump. But was that playing in your mind during all of that? I mean, that's got to be a tough one to mentally rebound from.
Yeah, I mean, just the fact that, nobody wants to be hurt and laid up, like you don't, once is definitely enough for that to happen. And it's yeah, it's just I mean, not so much the accident was playing in my head because I don't remember too much from the accident, but I remember the recovery. That
Sure.
was definitely the hard part because it's so much time and so much pain and I just yeah, definitely didn't want to go through that again. But on that first jump, I really wasn't thinking about much else besides like being in that moment. I mean, it's kind of hard to think about anything else when you're base jumping.
I bet. I bet. Dude, I've done ground crew a few times and been to the bridge a few times with my old buddy Kevin Love and being on the ground filming and taking pictures. I'm puckered the fuck up and I'm on the ground. I'm not doing shit. But it's got to be the next level of intense.
Yeah, it can definitely be intense. Especially I think the more you get into it, the more intense it can feel in a way. Like in the beginning, this is what I noticed from teaching people. There's this like phase where they haven't been exposed to the sort of negative side of things. That like they've never seen anybody get hurt or had any close calls. So there's a level of confidence that's pretty high, and they basically start to think that nothing can happen. And then once you end up seeing that, and I've seen, I've lost friends, I've had close calls, I've had problems myself, and that definitely gives you a really serious respect for it. In a way, it almost makes the sport more intense and like brings you a little bit more fear, but it also brings you a lot of knowledge so that you can kind of act appropriately in certain situations, and it helps you know when to stand down from a jump, and then it just kind of I don't know, just gives you a better respect.
Sure. Well, I mean, that level of fear is controlled fear, I should say, is exactly that. It's control, right? I mean, you're able to really assess the situation and you're paying attention to your spidey senses instead of just being, Instagram confident. Nothing's gonna fucking go wrong
Yeah,
because I saw it on Instagram.
exactly.
It's you must find yourself, especially having done the schooling that you've done, having conversations with nervous base students, working through all the stuff that you learned as a psychology student, going, "Oh yeah, this is this type. I need to handle it this way." Is it like that, or is it just kind of a feel it each time out?
Yeah, I just feel everything out. I really don't like reference the stuff that I learned. I feel like it just like I'm already a pretty internal person and I feel like I can relate to people on internal level.
Sure.
Um, and it's just kind of more natural to me. I don't really think about the psychology stuff, but maybe that taught me a certain way to think.
Sure.
But I think I've just always, yeah, been that type of person that can kind of help people, you know, just kind of go through their feelings and
Sure. Well, and I love watching people do it for themselves individually. I remember having a great conversation with Matt Munting and Nick Scalabrino, and Matt was talking about after he was a pretty experienced base jumper, being nervous about a specific exit, and so he spent like hours and hours the night before just belly flopping into a swimming pool, so he made sure his exit was exactly the way that he wanted. But if you knew Matt, he was such a confident guy and so outgoing, you would never think that that would be him. You know, he always seemed so carefree about it. And so it was super interesting to find out, oh no, he's putting a lot of fucking thought into this. Like he's working through it, which was awesome.
Yeah,
It,
yeah. It definitely takes a lot. I mean, if you want to survive in the sport, you got to make you got to be on point, make good choices, and
so now
otherwise
what
it's
at what point in your skydiving career did you start base jumping? And obviously you had the accident with a swoop, so were you working in skydiving at the time?
At the time, I was just working at the gear store down in Skydive San Diego. I wasn't an instructor because I was trying to. I had all my friends were instructors, and they um, seemed like they didn't want to be at the drop zone when they weren't working, and I just didn't want that to happen. So I tried to resist and just fun jump all the time. But then when I had about 700 skydives, that's when I did my base jumping course with Bagster, and I was glad I waited that long. And at the time, all the courses required you to have 500 jumps,
Hmm,
and that's changed now to about 200. Um, I still think that 200 is definitely like a minimum. Like I don't, I don't take people in my class unless they have 200 just because, it's a matter of patience as well, not just skill. I mean, some
sure.
people have a bit more skill by 200, and then it's a matter of just, going through, having gone through certain experiences. Um, but
That's
yeah,
it, though,
I
right? I mean, a lot of people progress differently in the sport, and one person with 200 jumps can be a pretty with it person, whereas another person still has their head firmly up their ass. Um, so you're never quite sure. But even the people that are really with it might not have had themselves in the corner. They might not have had a sketchy situation or a fucked up landing or been in a tight situation, and that doesn't mean that they don't aren't heads up, they just haven't had that experience yet.
yeah, and sometimes the ones that worry me are the ones that come just overly confident
Mm,
because, like I said, they haven't seen anything bad happen, and so they don't think that can happen to them. Um, because it just, it just appears that they don't have any concern that or any ability to even see that something bad can happen. And that's when it's kind of scary is when they're very good at what they're doing, like very athletic and coordinated, but don't have the mental sort of capacity to understand like how bad things could go.
sure. Have you ever turned a student away?
Oh yeah, look, plenty of times. Because I mean, I'm not in it for the money. I make money doing it. It is my job, but I'm also like one of my main purposes is to help the sport grow in a positive direction. And if I'm taking people that just aren't ready, then it's not going to help that cause at all. I mean, it's the thing I don't want is for people like the authority figures to make rules for us to, or make rules to protect us from ourselves,
Sure.
because we're a self-regulated sport. So I'm just trying to help, um, you know, make good jumpers and to help the sport grow in a way where we actually are seen as responsible people that can do what we love to do.
Sure.
But yeah,
Well,
I've turned a lot of people down from jump numbers and then sometimes mentality. I mean, I do check on jumpers. I usually get a reference and then call around and make sure that they're actually, like serious about their numbers and not only their numbers, but how are they basically what's their skydiving behaviors like? Are they sketchy, like I'm kind of looking out for that because I don't want to put myself in a situation, and I also want them to be patient, like, I mean,
Sure.
it's it's kind of very necessary.
Well, and especially from an instructor perspective, it's not like a skydive where you can either have someone on a tandem progression or an AFF where you're physically able to at least fix the big problems for them. You can't do shit for these people once they've stepped off whatever object they're jumping. So that's got to be a pretty heavy stress on you.
It is. It's kind of a slower progression. Um, at first they have to gain my trust. And then there's points where they might lose my trust, and then we go backwards and until I can sort of trust them for basic things. I mean, things like you definitely have to pull. Um, and yeah, so it's interesting. I mean, once they're off that bridge, they're on their own pretty much. So
Yeah,
it's just trying to break it down into basic um, actions and things to think about in that short period of time.
sure. So somebody like me comes out, an experienced skydiver, but I've never base jumped, and I want to go through your base course. Walk me through the process.
Well, the first day you're talking about just kind of like the start, from day one to day
Yeah, yeah.
4.
What happens from the I shake your hand, hey, it's nice to meet you. Let's go jump off some shit.
Yeah, so we meet up and try to get to know each other first as a group. Because I usually have 4 or 5 people in each one. It caps out at 5 just because I like to get to know everyone and I mean, my hope is that I keep a relationship with them so that I can help steer them in the right direction. Because after the course is over, it's like I understand they can't just go get information off the internet.
Hmm,
They need some kind of reference to seek out questions that they might not get. So, anyways, we get to know each other, just kind of introductions, and then I tell them about how the course is going to go, just the layout of it, and then we start packing. They do have to know how to pack before, so I have a video online that a lot of people use. It is a lot of work to learn how to pack. Like for me, it was pretty tough.
hmm.
It took, yeah, it takes days, like I'd say a good 4 days of solid, like all day work for it to actually kind of click and then get easier. But they need to be able to pack within about 45 minutes before they come. So that does show me that someone is dedicated to their desire to start jumping. And so it shows me a lot if they show up knowing how to pack. Because some people just don't, and then that kind of screws it up for the whole class. In a way, it just takes more energy from me that you know, for to teach them how to pack.
Sure.
So yeah, the class just goes better that way. But I kind of supervise their pack job, give them tips to fix it, and then once we're done packing, we put the rigs on and we kind of drill for the first jump, which is a PCA. And there's kind of a lot that goes into that. Just building a routine, how to climb over all the small details so that we can make that more automatic rather than when they're out there trying to figure things out. Because if they have a routine built, then they just have more brain capacity to think about other variables that might come up. And yeah, so we uh, do that. And then once everybody's kind of ready and has a good idea how the first jump is going to go, then we go out to the bridge and do an introduction like of the bridge to see how like how it's all going to work. Talk about wind directions, landing areas, how to land in the water, all kinds of things.
Hmm,
Because that's all, the wind directions, it's real important because it's a windy place.
sure.
And then we eventually get out on the bridge. It's kind of midday by this point on the first day. And then we, yeah, start sending it off, doing it just like we practiced. Main thing is just, trying to understand the canopy. Like I said, doing a PCA. So the most canopy time. A lot of people have come to the course having jumped their base canopy out of a plane with,
Mm,
in a skydive rig so that they can get used to it because it is a big canopy.
sure.
And then we always hike up the first time just because I like people to earn the altitude and kind of get to know the canyon better. It just gives you a better understanding of how high it is if you have
Sure.
to hike up out of there rather than get on the boat the first time. It's what I had to do, and I just thought it was a good idea because it just definitely gives you a better, um, I don't know, I feel like it just kind of it's a rite of passage,
Sure.
and it's just helps you get a better understanding of the canyon, just a respect. Then we go pack. We usually get a dedicated space away from everyone to pack in. And then yeah, we move on to if their jump was good, after we pack, we move on to handheld and we do about four handheld jumps or so until they're ready. Some people, I've had guys just do PCAs the whole class. I'm
Mm,
totally fine with that. There's no pressure, like I want everybody to basically the main part of the course is learning how to make good decisions so that you can survive in the sport and continue doing it for the rest of your long life.
sure.
But yeah, we do about four handhelds and then we move on to stowed jumps. Um, that's probably by the second or third day. And then there's also a built-in advanced course in the course where we do a lot of object avoidance. That's so, if the canopy opens 180 degrees from on heading like towards a cliff, then we need to know how to turn it around because you've got maybe 2 seconds to turn it around. So we practice a lot of that and sinking and gliding. And we do sometimes unpack jumps and running exits and two ways and basically there's infinite amount of stuff. And I do full advanced courses on all that stuff too, but we just kind of get into what we can do depending on the conditions.
Mm,
But the main thing is making good calls, right? Like I don't try to just push people through to get jump numbers in the course. I know everybody wants to be able to jump, but I don't want to push people to get those jump numbers because I feel like that's just teaching bad habits of
sure.
jumping in dangerous conditions. So yeah, we do all that. And then by that, at some point in the course, either during a weather hold or at the end of the fourth day, we do a classroom discussion, which a lot of courses don't do. Like I'm not trying to just teach people how to jump off of a bridge. I'm trying to teach them how to survive.
Mm,
And so there's a pretty lengthy discussion about a lot of technical info and just stories and experiences that I have because of my experience. I mean, I've got 8,600 base jumps
Jesus
in all
Christ.
different disciplines, and I've jumped all over the world, and I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm here at the bridge all the time, so I see everything that could possibly happen, it seems like. Um, I see different mental, like different personalities and mental states, and I just know a lot, and I'm really good at like seeing patterns in people and over long periods of time and seeing what works as far as success and safety, and also what doesn't. And so we just talk about a lot of that they wouldn't get anywhere else. And
Sure.
it's boring for some people, but some people that's the reason they come to the class because they want to get all that information and just learn from my experience. And
Sure.
then, like I
Well,
said, after the class, it's not over. They just, I try to be there for them.
Well, and from your perspective too, the mental game has got to be so entertaining because when it was all said and done in skydiving, the most enjoyable part for me, oddly enough, turned out to be working as a tandem instructor and not the jump itself, but the working with the student. And I've said it many times on the show before, playing 20-minute psychologist and having 20 minutes to figure out how to get somebody to trust me enough to throw them out of an airplane attached to me. And it was really fun because it's obviously you see patterns, but then every once in a while you get somebody that just fucking goes off the map in the middle of it and you have no idea what comes next. And it's really interesting to see how to handle people and work people through extreme situations. So I can only imagine how much more intense it's got to be standing at the top of the bridge. I mean, how tall is that bridge?
It's 486 feet.
So 486 feet, looking over that, it's for a skydiver incredibly low, but it's also really fucking high up there. So I mean, it's got to be super intense to be looking down, going, "Shit, man, that's the rock I would hit if I don't do anything."
Yeah, I mean, coming from skydiving, it looks so low to them. and then they end up realizing it's a decent amount of height. For a base
Sure.
jump, it's actually, I'd say like middle range, it's slider down, but
Oof.
yeah, it's pretty interesting because you don't you can't it's not one of the sports where you can freeze up, and that's the worry that someone's going to kind of freeze up and just totally go brain dead.
Yeah.
But that's why the bridge is a good place to learn, because we do have water underneath. And then, also another thing is that people do have to sort of make their own decisions. You can't just tell them, look, you're not made for this sport. You shouldn't do it. Because then most people are going to be saying, yeah, right, dude, you're just the guy that's getting in the way of my hopes and dreams.
Yeah.
So you kind of have to lay it out to them in a way where they understand and make that decision themselves if they're not going to do it. And that can be hard sometimes because I'm not trying to get in the way of people's hopes and dreams, but I also don't want to see people die or
Sure.
get hurt. Or, also another important thing is that I don't want to see people um, sort of mess it up for the group as a whole, because it's not just about each person's individual desires in the sport. You have to think on a higher level about the group as a whole and do what's good for the group. I mean, a
Sure.
lot of people are not even capable of doing that, unfortunately, but it is the way that this sport works.
Sure. Well, I remember somebody, and I can't remember who, telling me a story about a guy that was going to base jump in Italy. And I don't remember the details specifically. I think he was trying to jump a wingsuit and had no clue what he was doing, and it was obvious that he didn't. And a number of people were like, dude, you can't fucking do this. And he basically said, you can't tell me I can't do this, and jumped off and died. I
Yeah,
mean,
I think I
there you
know
go.
this story.
Yeah, so it's a small community, right? So the stories get around. Um, and I remember thinking, yeah, I mean, that's fucked up on so many levels because now this poor guy's dead, A, and B, it's just another stain on the reputation of base jumping, which sucks.
Yeah, it's got to be protected. And then, like I said, it's really got to be protected so that we don't have uh, authority figures making rules for us.
Sure.
Like we have to appear very responsible. And most of the time we are, but even here we get people that have no business base jumping. I feel like it's real important to have at least 200 skydives. But someone that doesn't have 200 skydives doesn't understand that. And they're like, whatever, I'm going to do this anyways. And it's like, what do? You can't just go, punch them in the face or anything. It's like, just have to try to explain to them that, hey, man, like if you do this, you're going to screw it up for the rest of us if you go break your legs and back,
Yep.
and it's going to make us all look bad.
Yep.
Sometimes they understand that, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it just takes time.
Sure.
But it's not a hard thing. Just skydiving's fun. So I don't understand what the problem would be with going and learning how to skydive and getting really good at it.
Sure. Well, it reminds me of a story from way back when that I'm sure you've heard, the Jan Davis story when they were trying to free El Cap. Um, and how horrific that was, and someone with a lot of experience just made a silly mistake trying to push the sport forward. And of course, it had horrible consequences not only for her, but for the sport in Yosemite,
Right.
which sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have all different types of people that do this sport, and it kind of just averages out into this, you know, sort of attitude that everybody thinks that we are. And yeah, it turns out in interesting times, at
Sure.
times. I feel like
Now,
right now base jumping's pretty interesting. Everybody's wanting to get into it, and it's like there's no telling where it's going to go.
well, I mean, even when I was still actively jumping, and I haven't jumped in a few years, you would always hear the tandem students come out. I'm just coming out to learn how to jump so I can go fly a wingsuit down the mountain.
Oh yeah,
Cause, and now, of course, every other video that you flip through online is Red Bull guys flying under the bridge in Italy, or down the Eiger, or all these fucking amazing things that are arguably some of the most spectacular things that anybody's ever seen. But they don't realize how much backstory there is into that guy or girl being able to pull off that incredible stunt.
Right. There's so much that goes into it, and there's so many talented people now that and that's what you see on the internet is, usually like the success stories now versus where we were talking about so much carnage. It's almost like you see more of that. So people think that it's e more easily attainable, but you
Sure,
still have to go through all the work. Although it is laid out for you now because people have taken that path already.
sure.
So you can get there, I would say, easier. But it still takes work and you can't just go skipping steps. But a lot of people don't understand that or don't have the patience to do it. They see that and they're like, that's fucking rad. I want to do that now.
For sure. Well, and there's a lot of people that don't realize that the guys that were pioneering a lot of the stuff that was happening, 15 years ago, 10 years ago, when fatalities were incredibly common, those guys aren't around anymore. But the guys that are jumping now have hopefully learned from mistakes that other people have made and have worked to get it safer and safer. Like I used to be so nervous talking to Nick and Matt when they were doing a lot of the proximity stuff, just makes me nervous because I'm not a wingsuit flyer and I'm not a base jumper. So I see them flying down the crack, getting fucking close, and I hate it because I'm like, Jesus, one little downdraft and there's stains. And both of them are like, dude, you have no idea how much harder it is to stay down there than it is to just get pushed away from it. And I didn't realize that until I talked to them. And so it really kind of flipped a switch in me that now I can watch proximity stuff and not be quite as freaked out because I realize, oh, it takes more work to stay down there than it does to just get pushed away from it all. Okay. I mean, it's intense. It's fucking intense to watch, even if you know it's going to be okay. But I mean, I'm a guy that watched the Free Solo movie, and even though I knew he lived, I was still shitting my pants the entire time he was climbing El Cap. So what's I want to ask, what's the lowest object you've ever jumped? And a follow-up question of why the fuck did you jump that low?
I think the lowest was 145, and that was about over, I don't know, 12 years ago or so. And the reason why I jumped it, and that's not too low compared to, I mean, now that with canopies, you could like, I could jump the same object and it would be a lot safer. I was jumping a blackjack, which is a normal weight canopy. And now with like the Haydukes, and other canopies like it, you can jump lower sub just because they inflate a lot faster and they stay inflated. But I jumped that because we were going to go jump a cliff and it was a little bit breezy. And there was this little cell phone tower and we saw it and we were just thinking, man, we should go climb up that thing. So we measured it and we're like 145. Yeah, I guess so. Um, and my friend Spence that jumped it with me, he ended up landing kind of hard because a lot of canopies had end cell closure, instead of just like opening and being highly pressurized right away. And he just kind of landed a little bit hard because of that. And um, I landed fine. It wasn't a huge deal. But one place that I did jump, it was a building that was 190 or so, and I free fell it because the antenna, I actually did a static line, and so that makes it pretty reasonable. But the building was 190, and I had to make more than a 90-degree turn, which, after opening, I would say I was probably open at about 40 feet and then had to turn quite a bit. And so I did come kind of skidding in on my butt and in the street. And
Oh,
that was pretty intense. That was one of my more intense low ones. And you can free fall lower than that. I did a tweener off of it and um ended up yeah, it was pretty low. Like low enough where I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do that again because there's certain things where you do it once and you're like, okay, that's enough. And then there's certain ones where you are repeatable
sure.
and you can do them again. That was one of those ones where I'm like, yeah, I think that's as
Well,
low as I want to go.
I'd imagine that, I mean, although luck is a part of life, it's got to be jumps like that where you're ticking it off going, all right, I don't want luck to play that big a part in the shit that I'm doing.
Right. I'm trying to survive, and
Yeah.
and keep myself healthy and just have fun. And I mean, when I was a younger jumper, I liked to sort of do things that sort of scared me. At least I thought I did.
Sure.
And then eventually, after you have close calls and I mean, you realize you have to be more on point and you can't be just pushing it all the time. So now I like to, I mean, I still do my more difficult tricks, but I do them when everything feels right. And there's a lot of different variables that go into that, like how I feel on the inside, how things are on the outside, like wind direction, even the temperature, and then who's around, even because sometimes there's certain personality types that are really just kind of noisy or
Hmm.
uh, you know, distracting because they're just demanding attention. So, that's sort of distracting. But if there's people that are just, there's a good vibe, then I'll do my more difficult tricks. Um, but for the most part, I just like to jump, and be stress-free about it because that's
Sure.
more fun to me for
Sure.
sure, is just to be like completely relaxed rather than a little bit tense.
Sure. Well, and one of the things that's got to be really good for keeping you a little bit more relaxed just in general in the sport is the technology and the equipment and where it's going. So
It's true.
the last 10 years have seen some insane innovation in your side of the sport.
It has, yeah. I mean, the canopies, um, they've had vented ones the whole time that I've been jumping. That was really helpful, but they just became a lot more precise, um, probably in their measurements. I mean, they make them on computers now, basically, and then uh, and then make them according to those measurements, and everything is just so much more precise.
Mm.
And the internal pressure is so much higher, and they're just way more efficient, and they can open a lot faster, um, which is good for low stuff. Um, and they can another thing that's really beneficial is that they can sort of fly backwards a lot better. I mean, basically it's a canopy that's stalling and it's just
Sure.
backsliding, but before they would get a lot squishier and fall out of the sky more, but now have a lot more internal pressure while they're backsliding, so that it's just a more efficient backslide,
Mm.
which is great because then if you got to back up off of a cliff or a building, then you can actually, back it up for a couple seconds and then pivot it around. Super helpful and just kind of changes the game.
Sure.
It's not a reason to give people more confidence. Like you still have to be a good pilot to do that stuff and
Sure.
you have to practice it to get good at it. Um, but it's
So now
awesome.
where are you making the decisions to go slider down, slider up, PCA, handheld? Like where do those kind of decisions play in? Is it conditions? Is it height? Is it a combination of all that?
It's mostly the height of the object. Like a PCA just for, because mostly skydivers that listen to this show, right?
Yeah,
So PCA is when someone holds on to the pilot chute and bridle and person jumps and it pulls all to line stretch, from someone standing on the object. Static line is same thing, just requires some brake cord. It's stuff that breaks at 80 pounds of tension. And then handheld, once you're up above about 300 feet or so is kind of like a conservative height, then you're just holding the pilot chute in your hand and then throwing it. It's considered a free fall jump. Yeah, I would say I usually tell my students about 300 feet up to, like 400 or so. But you can do that. People do that at bridge day. People go handheld and take 5 seconds. So
sure,
that's fine as well. You just wouldn't want to go on a terminal object like that because your bridle starts flapping around and then it could pull the pin out.
sure.
And then yeah, stowed is for higher stuff and because you got to reach back and grab that thing and throw it out.
So with the solo stuff, you're getting skydivers that have a certain level of experience and a certain amount of knowledge in regard to skydiving and canopy skills and all that stuff. But now talk me through tandem base jump because that shit is just, I mean, that's got to be next level for both you
Yeah.
and the student.
Yeah, tandem is pretty intense.
Got to be.
Um, so tandem base jumping is really serious, although I think a lot of people think that it's easy just because you're doing a static line or a PCA off of an object, but it's a lot different because you have someone else's life like on the front of you, and that's what makes it really serious. So you can't really treat it the same as a normal base jump. Like a
Mm.
normal base jump, it's just your life, which is important depending on, the jumper. What how they value their own life is what I mean.
Sure.
And they can make their own on the solo jump, they can make their own decisions and get as sketchy as they want, but you can't just do that when someone else's life is in your hands. You have to tone it back and make sure that you keep them alive and safe and healthy. So it's just it's a whole different thought pattern. It's not about pushing limits. It's about like taking someone for a ride so that you can show them why we do what we do.
Sure.
But yeah, it's so I started Tandem Base with two partners, Abi Mashal and Mark Kistner. Um, there was no tandem-based businesses. People had done it. There was a few people that had done it as stunts, like Ted Strong did one at Bridge Day a long time ago. I think it was 1984. There was an Australian guy, I believe his name was Tim Cousins, that may have done it before that. Um, there was a guy in Norway, can't remember his name, that did one, and so there's like a handful of stunt ones, and yeah, we came up with the idea to try it out, and then Abby and Mark ended up kind of doing the whole business side of things, and I was the basically the test guy, the jumper, and we yeah, tried it out. Like we got some gear specifically made for tandem-based jumping, and tried it out with some friends. We did a bunch of them with, just people that we knew until we felt comfortable about it, and then ended up starting to sell tandems. And so we were the first tandem-based company to exist. And this was back in 2009.
Mm.
And then there was nobody else that did it for about 10 years. Um, Basically, it was me doing like, let's say 99% of them.
Mm.
And then, yeah,
Did you find you got pushback in the community for Tandem Base? Because especially when it started, there were definitely people vocal on both sides.
we absolutely got a lot of pushback. I tried not to focus on that because I knew that there was a lot that they didn't know. I was a tandem instructor. I have had thousands of base jumps still at that time. Um, so I was kind of the guy for the job. And I just didn't pay as much attention to the negativity. I mean, I didn't want to just say, fuck off. I was try to be respectful to everyone, but also there were certain things that I just couldn't entertain because it was taking my time and energy that I needed to be putting into um, keeping the people safe
Sure.
and advancing what I was doing. But yeah, there was a lot of people that had a lot of doubt, and then I think one of the um, main arguments was that the person jumping, the customer doesn't know anything about the sport, and um, that they don't uh, can't remember how it was explained, but they don't really understand what they're getting into, so they don't understand the dangers of it.
Mm.
And yeah, so that's why I just tried to keep it as safe as possible and always keep it static line or PCA, because one of the main worries is line twists. I mean, with tandems, like tandem skydive, have been in line twists before that took like, you know, a minute or more to get out of,
Yeah.
because you can't just spin out of it. You can't go climbing up the lines. So it's difficult. So trying to limit that in tandem bases just by keeping it static line or PCA, and that
Sure.
really helps. And then also, I knew eventually other people would do it. So eventually I trained Mauricio De Palma in at Brento because he's a top-notch jumper, like
Mm.
he's very good at what he does. He knows Brento really well, where he was going to be doing them. And so it was, my idea was like, okay, I'll just train people that are elite jumpers that are, the cream of the crop. And then so we're affiliated, and then Matt Lajeunesse he's amazing as well,
Yep.
and he's got a great team going on out there in Moab. Um, so I train those guys, and then so the idea was like, people that are really mentally stable and have a lot of skill and are able to understand how sensitive it is, like if something did go wrong. And there's a lot of guys that I haven't trained that are still good at it too. So I'm not like talking shit about them, but there
Sure.
are some people that I worry about that um, are probably shouldn't be doing it, but are doing it. Um, and yeah, that's kind of what worries me because, if you've uh, yeah, I don't know how to say it
Well, I mean,
without being mean, but there's some people that shouldn't be
sure.
doing it because they're just not very good pilots and not very good base jumpers and don't have much experience. But just because they can get a rig built by a manufacturer doesn't mean they should be doing it.
Sure.
I think a lot of people just see dollar signs and
Of
I think,
course.
they first started it out to help to sh share the sport with the public so that the public would see how cool it is, and then the hope was that it would bring more support for the sport. I
Sure.
feel like it has so far.
Well, and with along with anything, tandem base is you're potentially one accident away from a huge problem for the entire, burgeoning industry. I had
Yeah.
I had Matt on, God, it must have been almost 2 years ago now, and I can hear a lot of the same things from you that obviously you instilled in him, which is great to see because it's that mentorship and that safety oriented guiding of, the people that are ambassadors to your side of the sport that's so incredibly important. So to have one fucking Yahoo out there that's going to screw it up for everybody because he wasn't prepared or just wasn't good enough sucks.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of rough. And so it's a tough position though, because I mean, not sure what you can do. I just want to be able to protect the sport and also the industry of tandem base because I think it can be a good thing. It's just, you know,
Well, that's the catch 22 though, right? Because it's a sport that above all else is about being able to live your life the way you want to. So how do you do that and be able to pull someone that's doing it all wrong away from that? It's got to be a horrible situation to be in because you're of both worlds, right? You want to be able to do whatever you want to do and live your life, and you want other people to do the same, but you also don't want somebody to fuck it up for you and everybody else.
yeah, exactly. And one of the problems with it is that you can pretty easily like someone can pretty easily trick the public into thinking that they have a certain amount of experience. You can't really trick the base jumping community because we're so tight. And
Sure.
same thing with the skydive community, like so tight it's not just all about having a big Instagram page within the small community, but if you're but for the public, they just sometimes they're looking for the cheap prices
Sure.
and then if you say the right words, and that's kind of unfortunate because they just don't know any better, so they'll end up going with you know certain people
For sure. Now, do you have to vet your students as well? I mean, are you like going through a bit of an interview process with them?
for the tandems.
Yeah.
Yeah, I to a point, yeah, and strangely, I get really quality people. Like I don't know, I can't really think of anybody that I didn't really like as a customer.
Nice.
Um, so I feel very blessed that that's happened. Because a lot of them come to seek me out, or they just sometimes just hear of Tandem Base and they end up coming to me. But it's good for them to do some research on their instructor to see who it is. But yeah, I usually talk to them a little bit. Um, there's definitely a weight requirement for myself. I've set it pretty low just because I'm trying to keep everything safe and
Sure.
most injuries would happen on a landing. So I'm
Sure.
not taking like 250-pound guys. Actually, my weight limits, it used to be 200, but I lowered it to 180 just because, sometimes in Idaho we get um, very hot temperatures and the density altitude might be really high. And
Sure.
I just don't want to take any extra risk, and I don't want to hurt anyone. So
Well,
that's just one safety measure that I put in there. It
anywhere
upsets
that,
some people.
yeah, but fuck, they've been getting upset about getting turned down for being under canopy because they're too big for how long now? I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know which is worse, turning them down for a jump or levying a heavy fat tax like some drop zones I've worked for
true.
do. I love the fat tax because I don't mind taking the big
Yeah.
guys and I like the extra money, but still, it's always a tough conversation when you got to walk up to somebody and go, "You're too fat to jump without more money." You know?
Yeah, and
So,
base jumping, it totally depends on the object and the landing area too, as far as the like my weight limit will change. Like if I'm doing building jumps, then I'll lower it to sometimes like 160 or so, just
sure.
it's like a solid object.
Sure. Now I know I'm not going to keep you too long because I know you said you've got a base tandem jump to do today.
I
But
do.
before you go, tell everybody how they find you social media wise, how they can sign up for one of your base courses, how they can come out and do a tandem base with you. How do they find you?
All right, so I am I'd say mostly I use Instagram to make any posts so they can find me on there. Just under Sean Chuma, one word. It's just SeanChuma. And then my courses are posted on Facebook sometimes, but also on SeanChuma.com under upcoming courses. And then for tandem base jumps, it's just tandembase.com.
Awesome. Awesome. Sean, I'll tell you what, I think we've been trying to nail this one down for probably the better part of a year. So I'm
Yeah.
stoked that we absolutely got to sit down and have a conversation. And although I will never come out and base jump with you, I'd love to sit down in person and have a beer sometime.
Heck yeah, sounds good. Yeah, thanks for reaching out again. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, man, absolutely. I have a feeling people are going to be super interested to hear about it, and hopefully you get some people signing, some good people with a little bit of experience signing up to do your courses. All right,
All
Sean.
right.
Cheers.
Cheers. Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.